The most common complaint I'm seeing with Triangle Strategy up to this point is that the story is too long or there's too much dialogue. Now, I want to give my thoughts on this because this is honestly something that I was surprised that so many people are upset with. Being that this is it's a JRPG, you go into it expecting a lot of dialogue, right? Especially people on this channel who play Fire Emblem, right? You play Three Houses. Sometimes it is going to be a long time between chapters or maps or battles because there's just a lot of dialogue to go through. And I don't think that Triangle Strategy is any more guilty of taking up your time with things that you may not enjoy or something than a game like Three Houses is. And people, I think the opinion of Three Houses is generally positive. I'm sure someone in the comments will say, I actually hate Three Houses or something, to be hip or cool or to have a different opinion than the populace. But generally Three Houses is liked, and it has a lot of tedium, has a lot of dialogue. Running around the monastery takes a lot of time. There's just a lot of things to do that aren't necessarily the things you play a strategy RPG for. Now, Triangle Strategy does really is really heavy-handed, or not heavy-handed, but it front loads. That's what I'll say. It front loads a lot of the exposition. So the first 2 or 3 hours of gameplay, you're just learning all these names and places and histories, and it can be a little overwhelming, and I get that. So I think that's probably where this is mostly coming from. And if I had to guess, most of the people who are saying that there's too much dialogue in the game only played the demo, or maybe only played the first, maybe first 5 or 6 chapters and decided it was too much. Where honestly, I was kind of feeling that. I was getting a little fatigued on the story at that point, so I get it, but I pushed through because I was enjoying it overall. Sorry, you're gonna hear some baby noises in the background. Sorry. But I was enjoying it overall, and it was good, right? But the story really starts to take off once you start making a lot of decisions as to like what path you're going to take. Whether you're going to go the like liberty, morality, or utility paths. And there's tons and tons of times where you get to choose the outcome of different scenarios, or choose which path to take. And I think that's where the story really shines. I saw it described in the comment section of the last video that Triangle Strategy is like a choose your own adventure. Oh, never mind. It wasn't in the comment section. It was in my Discord server. Triangle Strategy is a very interesting take on the visual novel that we usually get with a strategy game. It's a pick your own adventure book kind of thing. And I think that's a really interesting way to look at it. It's totally true, which I think makes it more interesting of a story than your average just JRPG in general, because you do get to actually influence it. Your choices matter. I feel like that was one of the biggest complaints that people had with Three Houses, is that their choices didn't matter, and there was all this these dialogue options for Byleth that were totally pointless and didn't really affect the gameplay except for 2 or 3, and there were a couple that did affect the gameplay, like support points and stuff like that, but that's such a minuscule thing that it doesn't really impact the game overall. So Triangle Strategy does a much better job of making your choices matter. There's even times mid-battle, the decisions you make and stuff, those choices are going to matter for the story and stuff. It's cool. I really appreciate the way they do it. So that's kind of my take on the story. I don't think it's too much. I do agree that the first 2 to 3 hours can be a little much on the exposition and the history of things, but I think that's necessary to set up the world for the great story that comes after that. And it does a good job. It does a good job of introducing characters, but I think that's also something that gets better over time, especially in the case of Frederica and Serenoa. Their characters, especially Frederica, gets better over time, and I think it's kind of on purpose, where Frederica is brought into the situation that she's not accustomed to. She's not she honestly is just not comfortable, right? But over time, you can tell she gets more comfortable, more outspoken, and more passionate about the things she believes in, at least outwardly. And I think that is it's actually a really cool character thing for her, and it really fits. So the dialogue might be a little much, a little ropey, you know, as you might say, and it's a little over the top sometimes with the old English verbiage. But if you can get used to that, which it did take me a little while to get used to, but once you get used to that and look past it a little bit, the story is really good. Like the narrative, the writing sure can be suspect, but I think the overall story is really, really good. So let me know in the comments what you think. Is the story too much for you in Triangle Strategy? Like, is there too much dialogue? Does it take too long to get through it? Do you think you'd prefer it if it wasn't voice acted so you could read at your own pace a little more easily? Or honestly, I think the voice acting is like the only reason I do enjoy it as much as I do. So that's part of it. And also, I guess that's an interesting thing too. How do you think the voice acting was handled in Triangle Strategy? Do you think it's too much? Too little? I mean, too much, too little. Do you think it's good? Do you think it's bad? That's what I mean. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that, because that's one thing I haven't seen too many people talk about, is the quality of voice acting. And there's some good there's some big names in at least like the video game and anime community that have voices in this game, right? But there's also plenty of relatively unknown people. I think they do a good job for the most part. I think the problem is I think Sarah Noah is actually one of the weaker voices, but all the characters around him do a really good job. Like I'd let the Benedict's voice actor read me bedtime stories. So good. But anyways, tell me what you think of the story. Is it too much dialogue? Do you wish they had? Wish the cutscenes were just faster or something like that? Just like good bad little battle, and yeah. Do you think and also, what's your thought on the dialogue options? Do you think they're cool? Do you think actually affecting the story enhanced the story? Do you think it like took away from the overall story? Very curious to hear your thoughts. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time, friends.